Martin Shkreli was released on bail Thursday afternoon after being arrested and charged with fraud, allegedly for running a Ponzi scheme. The 32-year-old CEO of Touring Pharmaceuticals became the corporate face of greed when he raised the price of a long-existing drug from $13.50 a pill to $750. It's a 5,000% increase. Professor Michael Perino teaches securities law at the St. John University School of Law. It's good to have you with us. Can you lay out the case that federal investigators have against Shkreli?
Sure. In many ways, it's a plain vanilla securities fraud case. Shkreli started two hedge funds to invest in biotechnology companies. In order to lure investors into those hedge funds, he basically made material misrepresentations to them. He lied. He told them, for example, that he had $35 million under assets. In reality, the firm had $700. It was pretty blatant fraud. Both of those firms failed. And the other allegation in this case is that basically Shkreli diverted assets from a third company, Retrovin, in order to pay off the claims of those investors in the failed fund. So in effect, he was stealing from one company to pay off the investors in another.
The board of the pharmaceutical company was getting wise to what Shkreli was allegedly doing. And they said, not only are we going to remove you from the position that you currently occupy on our board as CEO, but we're also going to bring this to the attention of investigators. Was that really the turning point? Is that at the point where investigators got involved and where it made a difference, the fact that this corporate board started noticing abnormal behavior?
As I understand the facts, the SEC had been investigating the company even earlier than that. But certainly, given the notoriety this guy had by this summer in terms of the price gouging at the other company, he had a big target on his back as far as prosecutors were concerned. And once the company brought claims against him, that was just a roadmap for the prosecutors.
So, Michael, in this other case where he's saying to investors, look, I have a big auditing fund, and we have returns in this fund of almost 38% when in fact they had lost 18% or so, at least according to the allegations from prosecutors. You have investors signing up, going into this, and then Michael Shkreli, and prosecutors say, is taking money from this pharmaceutical company to pay those investors. To do so without raising red flags, he allegedly was naming these investors as consultants. Wouldn't those investors have a clue that something's wrong when all of a sudden they're getting named as consultants to Retrovin?
Well, we don't know what the involvement of those investors were and how much knowledge they had about exactly what he was doing. And they were looking to get their money back. And whether they're implicated somehow or another in the allegations of this complaint is another question that people are going to have to look at.
We don't know that yet, but we do know that his lawyer is implicated and has been charged as well. His name is Evan Griebel. How does your lawyer end up facing charges alongside you?
So this is the one thing that makes this case unusual. It's really unusual for the prosecutors to go after the lawyers. It creates significant problems for Shkreli in this case because the first page of any defense playbook in a securities fraud case is, I relied in good faith on the advice I got from my lawyers. They told me all of these transactions were on the up and up, and therefore I don't have criminal intent. You can't prosecute me for securities fraud. Shkreli doesn't have that defense available to him in this case now because the claim is he and the lawyer were in cahoots. They were co-conspirators cooking up this fraud together. Now, what we're going to see in the future probably is the lawyer maybe cutting a deal with the prosecutors to testify against Shkreli.
How could that ever be legal? What about attorney-client privilege?
Attorney-client privilege does not apply when you're using your attorney to commit a fraud.
So do you think the case against the attorney comes first and then they try to get him to turn?
It's unclear how they're going to do it, but I would imagine that the prosecutors are going to work pretty hard on Mr. Griebel to try to get him to cooperate.
In a fairly unusual tweet today, we saw the FBI come out and address some of the speculation about the fact that Shkreli, who has been a fairly public figure, and not just for the grinchy things he's doing by astronomically raising the prices of important drugs, but also live streaming himself playing video games, and paying some $2 million for the only copy of a Wu-Tang Clan album. And he apparently is not even that big of a fan. He said he hadn't even listened to the record yet. When that news came out, people everywhere went crazy. And the FBI today said, by the way, we did not seize the Wu-Tang Clan record. But something like that, because it's interesting, could they actually force him to auction it off, or could prosecutors auction it off, the federal government, in order to repay people who've been harmed by the fraud?
So in a nutshell, if he used the proceeds from his crime to acquire property, then the prosecutors can require him to forfeit all of that property.
That's so interesting. Do we know yet who has been harmed, who the victims are here?
Well, the primary victim is going to be the people who were lured into investing in the hedge funds and lost their money there. And then the other victim is the Rentrophin, the pharmaceutical company, because basically Shkreli stole their assets to pay off these other claims that he had.
Nice going to jail outfit for a guy who's a CEO, isn't it? Hoodie. Michael, thank you.
Thank you.